In this episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, I sit down with Dr. Patrick Owen, ethnobotanist, university lecturer, and unapologetically human. Patrick opens up about his personal journey and how these experiences have shaped his view on health, community, and what it truly means to live in alignment with our evolutionary design. From ancestral nutrition in Tibet and Papua New Guinea to the social dangers of hyper-individualism, Patrick shares a deeply thought-provoking look at how far we have drifted from the tribes that once kept us alive and what it takes to reconnect. We also explore his take on the mismatch hypothesis and the emotional costs of modern tech, comfort, and convenience. Raw, real, and refreshingly grounded, this is an episode about remembering who we are and finding our way back into our tribes, or in my world, our flocks. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions. And get ready to take a deep dive on the Better the Pond Pondcast with my special guest, Dr. Patrick Owen, otherwise known as Professor Caveman. Well, Dr. Patrick Owen, I am absolutely ecstatic to have you on the Better the Pond podcast. Now, to my listeners, Dr. Patrick Owen. Now, this guy is an international speaker. I have personally seen him speak absolutely like world class, world class. He's a nutrition, fitness specialist. He's a coach, a lecturer at McGill University. There's the PhD. So this is one smart cat. And I'd have to say, probably one of the smartest and nicest people I have met in my entire life, and otherwise known, which I've named him as Professor Caveman. And, if you see him riding a mammoth, he will be the only one. Dr. Patrick Owen, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, well, I think we should end it right here before. That's amazing. Thank you.
You did it. I'm just calling it out.
Dang. Wow, like I'm blushing. Thank you. Yeah. Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to the pond, Goose.
Yo, you're most welcome, Professor Caveman. So, so to jump in, before we jump into kind of, who you are and your backstory and the questions I'm going to ask you is, can you just sort of tell my audience, what do you do? What does Professor Caveman do?
Well, yeah, I do lecture at McGill University in the Department of Dietetics and Human Nutrition. I teach a course on medicinal plants, herbs, foods, and phytochemicals. So that's my background, ethnobotany, about how plants affect human behavior, human psychology, human biology. And from there, I somehow got into nutrition, and nutrition and psychology are tightly wound. And from now, I'm giving public talks about the human condition and how we're all connected through our environment, through our connections. Apart
So,
from that, I'm a family man, and yeah, I do one-on-one consultations for nutrition consults and lifestyle plans.
so just don't so we don't confuse the audience. Why would I call you Professor Caveman? So let's just go back just a little bit in time. We'll get to your deeper story later, but just to give an idea, with said all the work that you do, but just a little bit on why would I call you Professor Caveman?
I take an evolutionary approach to almost everything. So before I go further on, I want to know why. Why is this the way it is? So evolutionary biology, evolutionary psychology, and then we are living in a place where we have to consider the biology and the culture, and culture is a huge thing. But sometimes we forget about the way we're built, the way we were designed, our hardware rather than the software. And so the caveman part of it is basically what we call an ancestral approach to health and fitness and wellness. So there, hence we use hunter-gatherers and cavemen as an example of how we were designed, because that's where Homo sapiens were first forged. So we have the same wiring back then as we do today, but we're trying to mask it, or we are masking it with culture and politics and society and everything, but it's still there.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that was the one thing. So when you spoke to my Tech Canada group, let's give Gord Moker a big shout out on the
Like
podcast.
that. Oh God.
But when in talking in your talk, there was moments where I was literally kind of my mind was kind of blowing, and to realize, one of the things that really stuck out. I mean, there was so many. I mean, outside of having to do all the exercise, the only tech speaking person in Vistage that you make are forced to exercise in
Yep.
speech, but but it was there were certain things that just talking about light, talking about the role of sort of male female in the tribe, the aspect of the ancestral patterning of the transition people in the world, of how, right, how it played out and as they migrated through planet Earth. Like, I mean, we're going way way back. And the one thing that was actually, and I don't know why, it still sticks with me, of leaving one leg out
Ah,
when you're sleeping. So let's just can you just kind of go in that space
it's
with
great. A
me?
lot of people chuckle. They go, "That's why. Why do we stick out our legs under from when we're sleeping from outside the blanket?" That's because of our circadian rhythm and our body. We are diurnal creatures. Humans are diurnal, which means that we're active during the day, despite what you think, and we usually sleep during the night. And so we have these hormones associated with sleeping time, which is melatonin, and waking time, which is cortisol. But we have these environmental cues that reinforce the fact that it's time to sleep. And these environmental cues, the Germans have a word for this because they're the experts on chronobiology. These are called Zeitgebers. And we have temperature, sound, and light. And temperature is actually kind of interesting because research shows that if it's hotter than 19 degrees Celsius, at every half increment increase in Celsius, that means the hotter your ambient temperature, the higher the likelihood that your sleep will be interrupted. And this was done in nursing homes, old folks' homes, and controlled areas. We sleep in a cool environment because it's habitually cooler at night. The sun's gone, right?
Mhm.
We have, depending on the person, we use our face as a way to detect ambient temperature. No one, not no one, no child, no woman, no man, no human creature will ever sleep with their pillow or their blanket over their face. Always. So our face is the primary determinant of the ambient temperature. And it's saying, like, yeah, it's cool. That means it's night. It reinforces the fact that we should be sleeping. Some people sleep with their hands out, but some people stick out with their foot out as a way to, yeah, as a second opinion, more or less. With age, with sensitivity, with beards, whatever like that. It's just like, you know what? I'm getting the message that it's kind of cool in the mess, but let's get a second opinion and we'll stick our foot out. Some people don't have to, some people it's their hands, but it's either the face or the extremities that kind of reinforce that secondary message that it's nighttime, you should be sleeping.
Yeah, that so it's interesting you just say that, because I think I cannot cover my face when I sleep. And
No one,
I just thought it was more of a breathing thing, and then, right, of not getting air, and it's hotter, obviously, but I would never do it. I couldn't do it. There's no way. Like, if I
no
get it
one,
up a little bit too high, it's like, yeah, I gotta get it out of there.
yeah, yeah. We're thinking of these high altitude mountaineering people who have the sleeping bag and they close the hole right into their nose. You got to do what you got to do. I mean, I don't know. I've slept that way a few times. It's horrible, but eventually your body says, "I gotta sleep." So you get used to it. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's not a comfortable. That's the extreme that came to my mind. But
Yeah.
yep.
Huh,
So if you
there you
your,
go.
so the rule is keep your bedroom cool between 16 and 19 degrees Celsius. And if you're someone who is like chilly, it's okay. You can have a blanket, you can have a pillows, but make sure that your bedroom is that cold or
Hmm,
cool.
there you go. There's one takeaway already. We haven't even got started. Ah. So, Professor Caveman, Dr. Patrick Owen, um, you know, I want to know, like, where were you hatched, right? Where did you start life? Your humble beginnings, where were you hatched, right? To becoming a gosling, right? Which means that you started to grow up, to the time that you left the nest.
Yeah.
This is either one of two things happened. Either you left the nest or you got kicked out, one of the two. And to where you are today, Dr. Patrick Owen, what is your backstory?
Well, I think I got addicted to the academic lifestyle, honestly. I think that was the big problem. I never wanted to leave.
So, so you were hatched at university? How
I,
did
well,
you
no, it's the thing
where'd you
is
start
that
life?
well, I started life it was a war kind of thing. Yeah, I got two younger sisters, and I was a very quiet, very shy guy, pathological introvert, and now I'm a public speaker. So that shows like how do I fix this kind of thing?
Where were you
Um,
born? Where were you
Montreal,
born?
Canada.
Where?
Montreal.
Montreal. So you're born in Montreal. So a very French guy.
We have cinema, more bilingual.
Okay, so it started off in Montreal, was that's where you're hatched? Mom and dad, two sisters?
Two younger sisters, like we very, very, very close in age.
All right.
Yeah.
So from that point on, tell me the story.
From that point on, I was a shy guy and I had my nerd friends and we were playing Dungeons and Dragons all weekend. And by the end, what I wanted to do was become a forest ranger. I wanted to hide in the forest. I was already a quiet guy. And I thought like, hey, how do I survive out here? How do I and so I really got into edible and medicinal wild plants. And that led me to go into plant sciences. When I finally went to, well, here in Quebec, after high school, we have CEGEP. This is where you start to specialize. And I
Mhm.
went to the closest thing to botany, which is natural sciences. And then from natural sciences, I went into plant sciences at university. And that was how I entered academia. I always wanted to live out in the woods.
Hmm. So when you got out of high school, obviously went to university in front of the path. Were you still at home then, or did you actually go out on your own and venture forth, then create
Yeah,
your own forest?
that's a good question. No, I had to go on forth. At 16 years old, I had my first apartment.
16. I was 17. You got me beat.
Hey, we're Gen X, man. We were like the throwaway generation. We had to figure it out.
Wow. So did you, if you don't mind me asking, did you get kicked out of the nest, or did you leave on your own?
No, well, the family moved further away, and I just started in my natural science program, and so I thought like, hey, I want to stay close to school. So it was, I don't know, situational. I guess my tree moved.
So in my story, my family moved away, and I was going into grade 12 in high school, and I said, I'm not leaving, I'm staying. So look, I think we got parallel lives, my friend.
A brother from another mother,
Mother.
Ghastly.
So, um, so you're 60. So I'm interested in this piece because at that age, when you think about, I mean, even in this day and age, taking somebody who's 16 and say, "Oh, by the way, you got your own apartment, go," would be
Yeah.
fairly different than what we went through. But so from that point, from that 16-year-old piece forward, sort of bring me from there up into where you are today.
Well, from 16 years old, I was in school. I was in academia. I wanted to learn everything about plants. I wanted to go into a forest and be able to name everything. That led to I want to name every bird. I want to name every insect. So I got into outdoor survival stuff, and we going. Some friends and I we formed something called the Wood Lodge, where we learned bushcraft skills and stuff. I was infatuated with that whole thing about how to make a fire without a match. And that basically was my life from 16 to 20 at the beginning
Wow,
of university.
that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Most of my friends were very, I wasn't a guy who went out and drinking. I caught up I caught up on that later on. Compensated. Yeah, but at the time, like we were just like a subsection of nerds, basically. Just let's learn how to do let's how to build a canoe. Let's learn how to build a shelter. So yeah, I was really into that. I loved it so much.
When you look back in time, was there any draw to that, or like did you find it, or did it find you?
I think I was drawn to that because of my anxiety to talk to people,
Oh,
you know. I felt like I was always in a corner playing with my Legos or drawing or playing music or something like that. And I was always in my own world. And so I was attracted to the peace. And I don't know, it's just, yeah, talking to people I didn't know just scared the death out of me. And so my friends are the ones very, very similar, like-minded, you know, like, oh, you
mhm.
like Legos? I like Legos too. Oh, you play me, I play music too. And then from there we bonded.
You created a tribe.
We created a tribe, exactly, exactly, and in more literal sense than any, because we hung out on weekends, we hung out after school, and then we started getting into woodcraft. That's it. We were like, "I'll see you after school. We're going to continue our shelter." Yeah, yeah, that's how it was.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
I know when you spoke to our group and we had spent some time together, which was amazing. Um, and you sat at my dinner table and my daughter was there and you started telling some stories about some of the cultural, adventures, shall we say, that you had. And would you mind sharing that? Because I think it's a really, that was the part of meeting you that was like, wow, this guy has really done some amazing stuff. So I'd be honored if you would share that.
Which story? The one in, there's so many.
The New Guinea one.
Oh, with the ants, with the red ants, or how they were like using me to threaten their kids to go to sleep.
Uh, there was that one, and then there was the fact even on the diet piece of how one tribe ate one diet and the different elevations and
Yeah, Papua New Guinea, they call it the land of the undiscovered country. It really is the land of everything's unexpected. And it's an anthropologist's dream because some experts think that 60% of all languages on Earth come from New Guinea, Papua New Guinea. And the reason is for extreme xenophobia. So that means that the interior is very hilly. And so you'll have one culture at the valley that have their own language, their own cultures, their own dance, their own, they'll worship something. And then you have one that's further up on the hill, up on the mountain, and they have their own language and their own dances and rituals and everything. So it's so fascinating. There's a lot of trade between each one, but there's a lot of ritualized warfare. This is historically, right? Not anymore. But when I went there, the world's newest language, which is pidgin. It's a type of pidgin, right? It's pidgin English, whatever. It's a mix of Dutch, German, and English, and it's not that hard to pick up. So I learned how to speak rudimentary pidgin, New Guinean language, right? And so that's how I got along. But when I went there, I went to what the reason why I went there is to do my PhD research. And I was looking at the nutritional transition, which means that I would compare the same people from the same village, but who have two different settlements, one which is connected to a road to the capital, Port Moresby, and one in Port Moresby itself. So I took the same tribe, the same language, the same cultural, but looking at rates of chronic diseases, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, all these things. And what I expected to find or to reinforce is like, hey, the ones that are living in the city are eating more city food and they have a high rate of obesity and diabetes compared to their traditional cousins who are off in the middle of the jungle who are eating a more traditional lifestyle. Well, I was shocked to find that 40% of the people of that tribe in the city, 40% had diabetes, which is really, really high. But they're urban, which means they're eating a lot of urban food or non-traditional foods. But I was shocked that I found the exact same thing in the original, in the rural, in the absence of diabetes. Sorry, in the absence of obesity.
Mm.
So I found 40% diabetes in the absence of obesity. And I found that they weren't eating enough calories to become obese, is what we call jungle diabetes or type J diabetes, where they're so insulin sensitive to sugar that they'll develop insulin resistance and diabetes, but not enough, they're not eating enough food to gain weight. So I found out the culprit, sugar, white flour, vegetable oils, is basically everything you need to make a donut. So I found, yeah, they were making donuts because compared to traditional food, you can't beat donuts,
Mm,
right?
true.
Yeah. So they were eating donuts, a lot of donuts, and you can't blame them. Yeah, all those ingredients they keep, and
Wow.
yeah, that's what my research was all about. But some of the stories I said that night, I think I can't remember. I think,
Well, that was the one that it's well, just sort of tell the story, then get up to speed because I think it was fascinating though. Is in the one tribe that you ate, it was like a very like high fat
yeah,
diet, right?
yeah.
And how you thought you would feel compared to the other ones. Are you with me now?
I'm with you now. So that's actually in another, I compared different cultures, different countries completely. And the first one was Tibet, the highlands of Tibet. So in the highlands of Tibet, there's, well, it's high altitude. There's no gardens. There's no agricultural land. They eat zero fruits and vegetables. The only plant that they eat is barley, which they will trade salt for with lower valley populations. So they have a lot of salt up in the Himalayas and they trade it for mostly barley. So barley is the main plant that they eat. Apart from that, it's almost all animal products. Um, they'll have yak cheese and butter, goat made from goat as well, dairy products, and of course, meat. So what we see here is something that resembles the ketogenic diet before keto became popular, but something that I had heard about but didn't really experience it until I got there is Tibetan tea, which is brick tea, which is a form of green tea, and they add a copious amount of yak butter and salt. So instead of milk and sugar, it's butter and salt. Something close to, bulletproof coffee, and that's where they got the idea. That's where Asprey got the idea from Tibetan tea.
Oh, okay.
So I was, I'll say, indoctrinated. I was told that saturated fat, cholesterol, and sodium are dietary villains. And here I was drinking this Tibetan tea, which had all three from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, just like everybody else, children included. And so the amount of butter and salt was just obscene. If I would tell a cardiologist what I was drinking and eating all day, they'd be like, "You should be dead." And that's my kind of thinking, like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have a heart attack after drinking so much, butter salted tea." And they have so much butter, more than tea in some situations, like a small little teacup, and it's like they see that I'm like glowing, getting low. The fire's always on, the tea is always boiling, the butter's always popped in all day, every day. You don't even drink the stuff, man. It just glides right down your throat. And I felt oily and stuff. But after a couple of days, it just felt so like so warming and comforting in the cool Himalayan air. I was looking forward to it. And in my mind, I was still thinking, like, well, despite all this horrible diet that I'm eating, I'm feeling amazing. But I attribute it to the Himalayan air, the fact that I was sleeping well, that I was social and I was talking to people and I was feeling good. It's not until I hit the books and realized, like, wait a second, there's something to this. I the only plant that I ate was barley, and the way they do barley, it's called tsampa. They cook the barley, they make a bowl out of it, and they put even more Tibetan tea in the middle, close it up, and then pop it in. So we're talking about the consumption of a brick of butter a day for some people.
Mhm.
It's astronomical, but zero obesity, zero cardiovascular disease, zero chronic illnesses. Honestly. So I came back and I wrote about what we call the Tibetan paradox. Like I couldn't make sense of it.
Mhm.
I lived it for several months. I felt amazing. I lost all these chronic issues that I had. I lost weight. And yet I was doing everything that I was told not to do.
Mhm.
And so I looked at the research and I realized, like, wait a second, there's no such thing as dietary paradox. We can adapt to any kind of environmental diet. As long as it's whole foods, we can adapt to almost any kind of dietary situation. But when I went to Papua New Guinea, the jungles, and I ate whole foods, I didn't, and donuts, I felt lethargic. I felt slow. I felt like I was eating less protein. I was eating more carbs, even though if it was, starchy carbs like sweet potatoes and rice, but it just felt different. And that's where the idea started brewing, like, well, I felt amazing in Tibet, sluggish in Papua New Guinea. Could it have been the environment, the diet? Yes, yes, and yes. And I realized, like, well, maybe my ancestry, my genetic, my my evolutionary path is more aligned with that of Highland of Tibet. And sure enough, I come from Northern Europe. My ancestors come from Northern Europe and they had to adapt to long, harsh, cold winters. And so during those long, harsh, cold winters, we had no fruits, no vegetables, apart from what we could store from the previous summer, but we had to rely on animal products. So if we reframe the ketogenic diet or even the carnivore diet more like the metabolic winter diet, that's what my ancestors did half the year. And so I was aligned and I felt like, yeah, that's I felt aligned, whereas I didn't feel aligned when I was in Papua New Guinea. Had my ancestors come from a more equatorial region, I would be so curious to see how I would feel. But yeah, I can't do that yet. So I can't switch ancestry yet. So that's the whole comparison between the culture, the food, and I came to the development of where I'm at now, which is an ancestral approach to human health.
So just two things around that. One is when we look back at the sort of the Canada Food Guide and like that whole thing that was put out, right? Well, here's the thing for everybody, right?
Yeah,
Clearly doesn't work.
doesn't work. You can't. It's a nice idea in theory,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a mess. It's not only a mess in the public because everyone's like, well, what's the best diet for us?
Yeah.
And we know that even in the scientific field, it's a mess. One of my main arguments is should nutrition, this field of nutrition, when it relates to chronic disease, should it even be considered a science? Because the field of nutrition started off with vitamin deficiencies. It's clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
We develop a disease and then we realize like, oh, it's because you don't have enough niacin. And then so that's a viable scientific approach. How much niacin do we leave? Do we need it? Why do we need niacin? But now it's diabetes, obesity,
Mm-hmm.
inflammatory chronic disorders. And it's really hard to tie link with nutrition because there's so many other factors: exercise, stress, your social connectivity, exposure to sunlight, all these other things. And I think it's impossible to just look at nutrition. Therefore, if I was going to ask the question, what's better for you? Let's go to extremes: veganism or carnivore diet. Well, from an evolutionary perspective, I'd lean more towards carnivore because there's no such thing as a completely vegan culture, right? However, in today's society, it is possible to be vegan because we can replace these with supplements
Mm-hmm.
or protein powder or vitamins and minerals, whatever. But in the scientific literature, if I had a debate, the vegan could back their claim up with solid scientific literature. Same with the carnivore. And that for me is an indication that I don't think we're well equipped yet, science-wise, to back up anything. Therefore, it has to be personalized. It has to be individual. And so we're not there. We're not there yet. The research would be way too expensive to tease out the nutritional components of chronic disease. We're
So
doing our
isn't
best.
but
But
isn't it interesting by 2025, right? And all this time, how much research, how much time, right? And it's everywhere. That yet still we haven't quite got this figured out. I was just having this conversation over a walk the other day and said, you know what, we haven't got this thing figured out, right? There's,
yeah,
because you hear, I mean, saw an article on how drinking white wine and champagne, right? And social influence will actually help you live longer. I'm like, well, then there was the whole red wine thing, which was like, that'll help you live longer. And then it was like, well, you shouldn't have alcohol, right? And because if you do, like, if you don't have alcohol, you'll live longer. I'm like, wait a second.
yeah.
Like,
So confusing. It's
yeah.
and it's really hard. You as soon as you hear these broad generalizations, well, I guess it goes for anything, right? You got to be careful. Does that apply to me? And alcohol is a fantastic example. We have guys like Huberman, who basically says like stop drinking because it's poison. He's not wrong. It is poison, but many of us are equipped for a detoxification system to deal with that. And then we have massive amounts of resveratrol, which is the active component in red wine. And the ethanol itself seems to help us. But is it right for you? Is it right for me? Is it right for them? If I was, taking charge of a massive population and knowing that some portion of the population cannot react well with alcohol, what's my guideline? Right?
Mhm.
This is where Canada's food guide, what does the government says, like, wait, what should we say about this?
Mhm.
And it's a really tough call because um, ask anybody. We had this conversation last night at this talk at this cocktail thing. We're talking about red wine. And I was saying, did you know that Pinot Rouge has the highest amount of antioxidants because of where it grows and the conditions, and it's a hardier berry, and the whole thing is just because it has to survive tougher
Mm,
conditions.
right.
It's high in antioxidants, and that's really good for us. And he says, look, I love Pinot Noir. And I said, like, for me, it's grape juice. you know I'm not a wine guy, but that's why it's so confusing. And so what I recommend is, hey, in fact, I want to bring us closer together. And historically, as soon as we discovered alcohol, that was the social lubricant that we needed. I came from a pathological introvert to a public speaker, and I couldn't have done it without booze. So my recommendation is a little bit, use it in social situations, go out with the guys and have a great time. Ask a girl out for a drink. Absolutely. If you find yourself drinking alone at home, then we got to have a conversation. But yeah, I am all for social drinking and having fun, but knowing your limits, and everyone's different. And just like learn that about yourself. That's my stance. So it's confusing.
No.
That's why we got to talk more. We got to go drink more. And then the following night, I'll be like, yeah, I can't handle what you gave me last night. And that's or live and learn,
Live and
realize it.
learn. I could go on so many angles in this thing, but we only have so much time. So, just to get us up to speed, Pat, what are you doing right now? Like, what's happening in your life right now?
I am dedicating 100% of my time right now to entrepreneurship. The public speaking I love it so much. But prior to that, I've always tried to keep down a 9 to 5 or something for a stable income. But thanks to you, especially you. I mean, you've been such an amazing mentor. I think I've got a really good message out there. The feedback has been incredible. So right now, I'm focusing on consultations, public speakings, and program development, and just trying to put my message out there and building communities.
You're an amazing speaker.
Thank you.
And really compelling. I mean, you hold an audience, you make it active, you make it engaging, you make it thoughtful, and it's then all the science back, so it becomes very interesting. You can back everything up. So, world class.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Wow.
So, um, so let's just jump here into what's something that's happened in your life that's ruffled your feathers.
Uh-huh.
Right? It could be positive or negative. Something that was like really powerfully really good, something that was really bad. But something that's ruffled your feathers in your life. And how did you deal with it?
Ooh, that's a good one. The hardest part is I'll give you a very common scenario is getting fired.
Ah,
When you're fired from a job, you're questioning your whole competence levels, and you're thinking like, hey, I did everything I was asked of me and I followed through or something. But sometimes you got to realize like, yeah, I could have done more. I failed in this regard. But I think getting fired, and I've been fired a few times, I've quit a few times, and I think entrepreneurship is the way to go for myself. But I remember every time I got fired, I either saw it coming or it blindsided me. And I think that goes for everybody out there. It's gonna happen to everybody out there. And I highly recommend that it feels horrible. It feels horrible. But then you wonder, like, did I see this coming? Is it part of me? Sometimes you got to admit the fact that it doesn't matter what it is. They're just cutting back because of budget. It's nothing to do with you. But man, it's hard to not take it personally. But you and I, before this podcast, were talking about accountability, self-reflection, and self-awareness. And that can take time to get there because first you got to get that resentment and that anger down, right? And don't do anything. You know this, right? Don't send an angry email or go on social media. It's like, well, I just got fired. No, man, you need some like quiet time. You need to stay in your cave. I'm going to use my metaphors now. Stay in your caveman cave. And when you've calmed down and you've done some reflection kind of thing, you gotta figure out like, okay, well, where do we go from here? How is this a blessing in disguise? So I'm hearing it now. Like family members, some friends saying like I just got laid off or I just got fired. And man, I get like, yo, that's a horrible feeling. So I think that's a common scenario where we all get our feathers ruffled. And I always thought of myself as a smart guy, as a professional guy with a good work ethic. But yeah, I've fallen short in some situations, and in some situations I felt okay with what I did, but life is unpredictable.
Well, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yeah,
Oh,
right. I think that's like, yeah, I like that actually. It reminds me of another saying. It says, make the plan, follow the plan, expect the plan to fail, make a new plan.
make any plan.
Something like
So,
that.
so with that, just on that, I think there's sort of a nugget that's sort of sitting there, and for anybody out there who has been fired, been laid off, especially when life is taking a turn, and and in your scenario, what would you offer to people out there as some advice for what they could do when those situations happen?
I really put myself into two different scenarios, right? One is that I know I'm on probation. I know I'm gonna get fired, or I'm living in a toxic work environment, or my boss is like, hitter. Is it worth keeping? And it could be like you got to do that pros and cons thing, right? Is it worth keeping? Like, are you getting paid really, really a lot? Can you get by just saying like, yes, of course I will, like this? Or is it really going to mess you up? Or, and this may come with age or experience or ego, whatever. You're saying like, I don't need this crap. I can do better. So you got to figure out like which camp you fall into, right? So a lot of people, I recommend. I was asking, I was talking to other colleagues. I'm thinking like, I think I might get fired. I think my boss is really after me on this one. Like she's making tons of these crazy scenarios. I'm just giving examples here, and they'll be like, just tough it out, keep your head down, get your work done. And you're thinking like, okay, okay. But some situations you're like, pay's not that great. The benefits aren't that great. I can do better than this. So first identify which way, and then once you've committed, commit,
So commit.
commit. That's the decision you made. Let's do it.
How much how much courage or confidence do you think someone would need in order to pull that trigger?
It's That's a really good question because the word courage for me is not really meaningful because I think that courage like it is developed, so you do it, whether you're scared or whether you're courageous, it has to happen. And so, yeah, you would be like, wow, what a courageous move. And I'm going back from an evolutionary perspective here. Like courage, by definition, is doing something that you're scared of doing it, but you know it has to be done anyways. So, do people think that they're courageous for doing it? Most likely not until after it's done. At that time, they're scared shitless
Mhm.
to be doing this. And is it about me? Is it about, do I have dependence? Do I have the situation? Am I stuck here? All these things have to be taken into consideration. And there's a lot of people that says like, no, not worth it. I'm not courageous enough, but I'm not scared enough is also a way
Mm.
to phrase it, in my opinion.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. So, as you know, or have come to learn, that geese fly with 71% more efficiency when flying in the V formation than flying solo.
Oh,
So
everyone
my
knows that. Yeah,
that was
heard it was
common
72% though.
71. And so interesting enough, I mean, the typical question I ask is what would be the secret to getting a team operating in that space? But I'm going to flip this question around a little bit from what I would normally do for you, just because of your background, and say, with the, they run, 71% more efficient in the V formation because of the fact of how they're helping each other out. So I'd like to take this into the space of how important is it, or what is the benefit of being in a tribe?
Honestly, survival. If back in the days of caveman days, exile meant death. It meant death. So to belong to a tribe meant survival. It meant belonging. It meant I'm contributing to the greater half. And we have all of these adaptive mechanisms, these coping mechanisms in order to be felt as if we belong to someone and not be exiled, right? And there are gender differences and all this, but the fact of the matter is that it is way more important for us to get along with each other than to go solo. Now you can go solo and you will get to where you want to go faster, but there's some important social considerations that you have to consider. Loneliness, unhappiness, loss of sense of belonging, loss of purpose. So it's actually, I'm going to say it's critical. It is critical. You can't, no man is an island. You got to go along. However, there's a lot of people right now that are, I don't know if you've heard this, but we're in an age of hyper-individualism, and this is kind of being promoted. I don't know if you've heard on social media, on the news, but people say like, hey, disappear for a month, work on yourself, and then come back. Hey, go your own way. You don't need it. You're an independent. You don't need anybody else. You can do everything yourself. This is the message that our culture is giving us. And I am saying like, no, no, I see where we're going here. You're this guy and you have all like this animosity and resistance around you. I get it, but this is making you stronger and you are part of a tribe. Not everybody in a tribe gets along, and that's the point. You need to figure out like, hey, this guy doesn't agree with my way of thinking, but we're part of a tribe. But what do we have in common? Well, the survival of the tribe. So let's work on that. We have different views, we have different religions, we have different political leanings, whatever like that. I can fight with him. I want to beat him up, but we have a common goal. Let's focus on that. And that's not where we are in this day and age right now. We're more like, just like, you know what? F you tribe. I'm going to find my own tribe online. They're going to reinforce my ideas. And that's where we are right now. So we're not, and some of these ideas can be maladaptive in a way, like harmful to a certain degree. And it shouldn't be that way. We have to understand that we are different. We all have different viewpoints, but what do you and I have in common? Let's find it and let's work on that rather than focus on our differences. So yeah, you're part of my tribe. I think entrepreneurship would be impossible without mentors, without people to say, stick with it, man. Yeah, I believe in you. You've got what it takes. And things are rough right now, but you're part of this flock. You're part of the V formation. Like, you'll take over one day, but right now, like ride is it what, tailwind, I guess it would
It's
be?
the tailwind. It's tailwinds.
Yeah, but eventually your turn will come up, you'll become stronger, and then you'll take the lead. And that's how it should be. That's how it's always been. And we're missing that right now in today's society.
One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and we've discussed a little bit, and I like, your viewpoint on this. As great as AI is, I think AI is great. I use it. I think it's a wonderful tool. Yada yada yada. Like, and it ain't going away.
Yeah.
But my belief is that AI is going to separate us. It's going to separate people. So then the reason I say that is that, hey, I could go talk to Dr. Patrick Owen. I could talk to Professor K-Man and get some feedback and input, and we get this relationship, and he can teach me, and I can learn, and this is great, and we're exchanging. Or my other option is, you know what? I'm not going to talk to Dr. Patrick Owen. I'm going to go on chat GPT, and I'm going to AI, and it's going to tell me what I need to. So now my relationship is now with chat, which is
Yeah.
an inanimate object, which is going to give me feedback, and there's no emotion, there's no connection, there's no true real human interaction, and I'm in a place right now where this really bothers me enough that I'm going to do something about it. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
That's a great question. Like you, I love ChatGPT, but you know what? It's faking the emotions. Remember when you're taught you're like fiddling something, developing a new idea, and before it answers you, it says like, now you're onto something deep. Great, love the way you're thinking.
Yeah.
And you get a little spurt of oxytocin and dopamine. Ugh. So this is what we call a mismatch hypothesis in the field of evolutionary biology. A great example that I use in my class, I'm just going to go on it because I think you're going to love this story. It's called the jewel beetle in Australia. The jewel beetles are amber in color, right? And the females are a little larger than the males. Well, the population of amber beetles or jewel beetles, excuse me, was declining in Australia. And the entomologists were wondering, like, what the heck's going on? But that was my Australian accent. All right, what the hell's going on with these jewel beetles? Well, what's happening Stubbies. Stubbies are short beer bottles that are, in New Zealand, Australia, they have that, right? So they would drink the stubbies and then they'd just throw it on the floor. Now the male jewel bottles will mistake that as a female version of their species, right? So they'll be like, damn, look at that big woman. And I'm gonna go and like flirt with her, and like, oh, she's not throwing me away, she's not resisting, and they copulate. So now these male jewel beetles are copulating with discarded stubbies, whereas the female jewel beetles are like, so the population went down until Australia started saying like, hey, don't litter with your stubbies, put them away or recycle them, don't throw them away because they're messing up with the jewel beetle population. So what's going on with the jewel beetle population? This is called the mismatch hypothesis because this is like a super version, right? An irresistible version of their women. These ones are large. They offer no resistance. They're very willing, whatever like that. And it was messing up with their population. Now think about us. We are so susceptible to the mismatch hypothesis. Pornography is a perfect example, right?
Mm,
Now, because that's replacing the pornography is basically our version of stubbies.
right.
We're to that rather than forming real, honest, face-to-face relationships. Same thing with AI. They are replacing that validation. It's a mismatch. I
Hmm.
feel good when ChatGPT says, like, now you're thinking like a real strategist. Like, damn, yeah. If I spoke to you and I ask you questions, you might say, like, well, okay, let me answer you, but you may not lead with a validating statement. Therefore, the hormonal response that I get to ChatGPT will be more powerful than what you provided because you're a human and you probably be saying like, all right, Pat, that's a horrible idea. You're way off track. ChatGPT will never tell me that. ChatGPT says like, you're onto something very interesting. That's like unconventional thinking. And I'd be like, right? Yeah.
Look at me go.
Yeah, exactly. I am. Look at me. I'm thinking outside the box. You'd be like, no, you're going. I'd rather talk to ChatGPT, which validates my emotions, rather than face the reality of
Mm,
your honest criticism. That's the response that I get. So I get an emotional reaction. Do you know how messed up this is going to be for people in therapy? People who like you need like thrive or crave validation. That's what social media is. It's a
hmm.
validation providing tool. And now you got a robot that is actually so specific. So you're absolutely right. I don't think it's going to mess up our connections. I think it's going to replace them. And that's
Oh,
massively different.
oh,
There's your soundbite.
wow. Uh, I was gonna that just you just hit me right between the eyeballs.
Okay, that's a good place to be hit.
Whew. Wowza. So yeah, so chat is us to chat is the beetle to the stubby.
It's replacing a need that we want, which is validation and a sense that we're good, we're smart, yeah, a
So
sense of belonging.
so with that, I mean, what would be kind of a words of wisdom from Professor Caveman to the audience to say, you know what, if we see this coming, right, what can we do to thwart it?
Flocks and tribes. That is the only reasonable way. The way a lot of people are saying, like, let's go back to traditional ways. That's not realistic. We need to reconnect with each other, really. We need to be self-aware enough to realize, like, wait a second, I'm sleeping with a stubby.
Wait, what? How did I get here?
Everyone's doing it, and that's the reason everyone's doing it. It's becoming normalized, right? But you and I are having the conversation that needs to be more widespread. And this conversation needs to lead to more self-awareness, realizing, like, wait a second, why the hell do I crave so much external validation? Maybe it's me. Oh my God. This is where we're having a hard time getting most people to realize this. Um, it's gonna get worse. I have a feeling it's gonna get worse until some pain point where we're going
Mm,
back to our conversation. It needs to be painful enough because either people change logically, like thinking like, oh, this I'm done with stubbies. I want to go or basically like, damn, there's no more stubbies around. I guess I'll go back. So are we gonna, avoid porn, avoid social media, avoid AI? Good luck.
mm-hmm.
We need to realize how far we're dependent on it, and then we have to set our own boundaries. And man, they are purposefully triggering our evolutionary wiring for a sense of belonging. I mean, that's how junk food works, right?
Mm.
They trigger our sense of belonging. It's like sugar, damn, sugar in nature. There's only, you know, maple syrup and honey. Like, ooh, what a find. But now there's sugar everywhere. So that's how junk food works. So this is junk food for our emotions, really, if you think about it.
Right. Wow. Crazy. Oh, I could go down so many paths with this, but again,
So,
all right, we're gonna do another. I think we're gonna do another podcast just on that. I think, which is a great, right? It'll be a special edition.
this is, yeah, the whole tribe, you use the flock, I use the tribe. And if we say, like, if we have a circle of jewel beetles, for example, and you got half of them saying like, yo, you should have checked out the stubby, then like the other half will be like, wake up, man. But unfortunately, with social media and internet, we'll find our own like stubby lovers, and they're their own thing,
Mm.
and they think that the rest of us are just like self-righteous. And then we're thinking like, oh, those guys are lost in their little stubby world. No, we need everyone. What's the commonality here? Well, we wanna meet some jewel girls that are, jewel girls.
Real girls.
Jewel,
There it is.
you know what I mean? Like something real. That's how it was. That's what we were designed to copulate with. Let's try that again.
Interesting enough. Just as one last thing, and we'll move forward. But yesterday I had a conversation with my EA, Rachel, who I absolutely admire and adore. She's been just such a game changer in my life. Interesting enough, you can use now, it's out there, you can get an AI assistant.
Yeah,
So that assistant will book like it'll learn your calendar, it'll book appointments for you, it'll do all these things for you. So it's an AI virtual assistant. So, so with that, could I, right, fire, as we talked about earlier, right, Rachel, say, oh, well, hey, I've got a computer to do this,
yeah,
do all your work for you. Therefore, I don't need you anymore. So
mhm.
now, right then, so right there and then, I've separated from another human because I'm going to use, right, for the aspect of efficiency and time, and money and time.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things that, when I was talking to Rachel yesterday, and there's two words, and I say this when I'm speaking as well, right? Is there's two words that I give Rachel every single day. And what do you think those two words are?
I need you.
That's three.
Want you. I love you.
That's three still. So there's two words, right? This is fascinating. Two words what is it?
Thank you.
It's thank you, right? I'm not gonna sincerely and emotionally thank AI. I can't connect with it. I'm not going to make an emotional connection with AI, and I think that's the thing. So just trying to jump on your piece, right? Because right, she does without her and my tribe, I would never be where I am. And AI can't replace, and I don't think that AI can ever replace that.
It can't replace the human connection. Rachel as a human can never be replaced, obviously. Um, but if AI advances to a degree that it can do that job and you save money and you save time, then your connection with Rachel has to be modified. Or if you want, I don't think we're there yet.
Mhm.
But honestly, if I could free myself up personally to have more me time, and instead of having Rachel work for me, I'd be like, Rachel, let's go for a hike. Or I don't know, you know? So it's use AI for betterment, but understand its limitations and what you can and can't get out of it. And then understand the human component and its relationship to you. I, as an EA, absolutely. The human connection, they'll have an emotional response and they'll be like, I know he'll really like that if I do that. And I don't, we're not there yet, but damn, we're close, man. That chat GPT scaring me in terms of its emotional validation.
Mhm.
It yeah, and I'm susceptible to it.
Mhm.
I'm as
Yeah,
an academic, yeah, exactly. When it says like, "Ooh, that's a great question,"
I know.
I will thank ChatGPT, like for validating the way I think. It would never have the same emotional response as face to face, but that's the problem with social media. With this problem with online communities is that it's a mismatch hypothesis.
Mhm.
All stubbies replacing the real thing. Many of us prefer the stubbies, but it's tearing us apart. It's killing our tribe and our flock.
And that's what bothers me, right? So that's what
Absolutely.
it's coming. So
Yeah.
so I think we should do something about that. What do you think?
We're doing something about it,
We
man.
are doing something about it. All right. So last question for you, is just from your journey is what's one sort of a piece of advice that you would give an entrepreneur starting a business today?
I'm a practical guy, man. I'm a pragmatic. So it's not like follow your dreams or like that. You need money. You need a little bit of a safety net, especially here in Canada with cost of living is high and it's a little bit more difficult. These are tough times.
Hmm.
And um, so my recommendation is that be prepared to be in that unstable period for a while. If you go in and you have a lot of money to invest, you're way ahead of us. Or if you got investors, it depends on the business, obviously. But the mindset is that am I fiscally okay? And I don't know. That's my most pragmatic thing. And entrepreneurship is not a 9 to 5. It's a 24/7. So you need to regulate. Well, you need to manage your time. Do you have kids? Do you have a family? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a boyfriend? Because I've seen some single guys and they dedicated like all of their life to entrepreneurship, whereas married guys who have other things going on in their lives can't. And depending on where you're going, do you need to? How much help do you need? Do you have the money to afford that help? Do you not, it's so in reality, I hate to say it, but it's also the currency in which we are judged on as men as a as a success. Success might mean, a definition of success, like, hey, I have two beautiful kids. I'm a successful man. Yeah. But does the rest of society look at me that way? No. So I got to look at the tribe and I got to look at what my community is looking for. And yeah, they're looking for, well, he's fiscally doing okay. It looks like he's good at what he's doing, and it looks like he knows how to make a profit, and he knows how to do this, which is a status symbol to a degree. So it has a lot of evolutionary implications, social, cultural implications. Back in the days, I would say like I'm a really good hunter, and I would have my status, but now it's he's making good money. It's the same kind of wiring that says that. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, that means you're going to become like a solo hunter in a way, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna be it says like I'm gonna go to these new lands to see if there's any hunt. I don't know. I don't know what's out there. It could be a huge success, but I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna find those things and bring back the food. And the whole thing is like not your ability to go out there and explore and see if you found something or not. You will be based on, well, what did you bring back? That's what entrepreneurship is. in a evolutionary perspective.
Love it. So, so Dr. Patrick Owen, if
Goose.
you were standing on the top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you, what would you say?
Let's get back together. Let's form that tribe. Guys, let's, give your buddies a call, have a guys' night out, drink. Ladies, have a girls' night out, talk to each other all the time. We need to reform communities. It doesn't need to be my family, it could be a whole other things. You can define it, but we need you to get on that phone and like make it happen. Everyone's too busy doing their own thing.
Mm.
So you got to be the one that follows through, and let's get back together. Forget about what's out there for a moment.
Love it. Well, Professor Caveman,
Let's get together.
you know what? The Beatles actually they were talking about something.
It goes way back, big then. It like you go through the history, the historical records, even folk tales. It's all about community on hardships and going through hardships together. It's it's ancestral. It's part of our nature, and we're getting fooled into thinking that stubbies are replacing everything, right? Using that
Right.
analogy. That's a good analogy. I'm gonna keep taking it.
You can go on with that one.
Is this a stubby or is this real? That's good. If your
Well,
listeners are doing that, then they should tag us.
yeah, exactly. There's a saying, right? It's easier to fool someone than to convince them that they've been fooled. So,
Yeah,
on that note,
on
Professor
that.
Caveman,
Perfect.
I really want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your stories. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing to better the pond. I want to thank you for being a great friend, and thank you for being in my tribe. If someone wants to become a member of your tribe, where would they go? Where would where would they find you in your caves? How do people go find you?
They could join my stubby tribe online
Right. Oh,
on social media, Instagram at Dr. Pat Owen, on Facebook at Dr. Patrick Owen, and my website is drpatrickowen.com.
all right. We will get that in the show notes,
Thank
and
you.
so that people can go out and find you and become part of your tribe because you got an amazing message. And if you do see a man with a beard riding a woolly mammoth, there is only one, and that is
Okay.
Dr. Patrick Owen.
Thank you. Thank you
So,
so
there you have it. Great time. I mean, I could literally, there were so many things. We're going to do another podcast. I can guarantee it. I want to get in that one space where you hit me right between the eyeballs. Um, and so this is Warren Berry, and I'm flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond because we're better together. Thank you so much, Professor Caveman.
And I thank you, Warren. Goose, you're the best. Thank you so much.